Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Who are you chasing? Because the greatest competition you will ever face is staring back at you in the mirror. It's not your neighbor. It's not your classmate. It's not someone online who's posting highlight reels of their life. It's you. The only person worth outworking, outgrowing, and outlasting is the version of yourself from yesterday. Success, growth, and fulfillment. They don't start when the world believes in you. They start when you believe in yourself enough to put in the work, even when no one's watching. You don't need more motivation. You need more discipline. Discipline to wake up early when you feel like sleeping in. Discipline to study when your friends are partying. Discipline to say no to what's easy and yes to what's necessary. Because here's the truth. You will never rise higher than your habits. You can dream big, speak loud, dress sharp, but if your actions don't match your ambition, you're just lying to yourself. So stop measuring your progress by someone else's timeline. Start measuring it by how consistent, how focused, and how honest you're being with yourself. You fail a test, you lose focus, you slip up. Good, now own it, learn from it, adapt. That's the process, that's growth. Remember, every decision you make, every morning you get up, every time you choose discipline over distraction, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. You're not here to stay the same. You're not here to play it safe. You're here to evolve. So tomorrow when you wake up, don't try to be perfect. Try to be better than the person you were yesterday. That's the only race that matters. This isn't you vs them. It's you vs you. And the moment you understand that, you become unstoppable. Self-discipline is the foundation because without it, everything else you try to build will eventually fall apart. It is the core structure that supports your goals, your dreams, your habits, and ultimately your identity. Discipline isn't about restriction. It's about alignment. It's about aligning your actions with your values, your efforts with your intentions, and your time with your purpose. In a world constantly pulling you in different directions, temptation, distraction, instant gratification, discipline is the silent force that keeps you grounded in who you're becoming. It's what separates those who talk from those who do. Most people want success, but very few are willing to do what it takes to earn it. They want the results, not the sacrifice. They want the reward, but not the routine. And this is where self-discipline draws the line. It teaches you that the journey matters more than the applause. That growth happens in the quiet moments, early mornings, late nights, saying no when it's unpopular, choosing work over comfort. These aren't flashy moments. No one claps when you study an extra hour, eat clean, or train harder. But those are the bricks that build something lasting. The beauty of self-discipline is that it doesn't rely on motivation. Motivation is temporary. It fades, it fluctuates. But discipline is a choice, a daily decision. You either run your day or your day runs you. Every morning you have two voices, one that says, sleep a little longer, and one that says, get up, let's go. Self-discipline is choosing the second voice every time, even when it's the harder choice, especially when it's the harder choice. Think about this, no one becomes great by accident. Excellence is never random. It is crafted, shaped, and earned by people who are willing to do what most won't. Not once, not twice, but over and over until their effort becomes identity. Self-discipline makes this possible because it builds consistency, and consistency is what transforms average into exceptional. When you look at the lives of the people you admire, their mindset, their achievements, their impact, it all started with small disciplines repeated over time. No shortcuts, no hacks, just clear intention and deliberate action. It's brushing your teeth daily, reading the book even when you're tired, putting in reps even when progress feels slow. These small actions may feel insignificant in the moment, but over time they separate you from the crowd. While others are reactive, disciplined people are proactive. While others seek comfort, disciplined people embrace challenge. And perhaps the most powerful thing about self-discipline is this. It's not something you're born with. It's not genetic. It's not gifted. It's grown. You build it the same way you build muscle, by pushing against resistance. Every time you choose structure over chaos, progress over pleasure, purpose over procrastination, you get stronger. And eventually, self-discipline doesn't feel like restriction. It feels like freedom. Freedom to create the life you want. Freedom to say no to things that waste your potential. Freedom to stay true to who you said you would be. In the end, it's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent, showing up, doing the work, becoming a little better every single day. Self-discipline isn't the end goal, it's the path. And if you can master that, there is nothing out of reach. Because when your habits serve your future serves your purpose. Chasing the better version of yourself is not just a motivational idea, it's a lifelong responsibility. Every single day, you are presented with a choice: remain the same or evolve. That choice might not always feel dramatic or significant. It could be as simple as choosing to focus on your goals instead of scrolling through your phone. It could be choosing to study when it's easier to zone out, to speak with purpose when silence feels more comfortable, or to forgive when holding a grudge seems easier. The point is, these choices are not neutral. They're directional. Every one of them moves you closer to or further away from the person you're meant to become. The idea of competing with your past self requires honesty. You need to be brutally real with where you stand. It means looking at yesterday, not with guilt but with clarity, and asking yourself, did I show up the way I said I would? Did I take a step forward, or did I get stuck in the same habits, the same excuses, the same fears? This isn't about self-criticism. It's about self-awareness. You can't improve something you're not willing to face. Growth demands reflection. It requires you to hold a mirror up to yourself and confront both your strengths and your shortcomings. This mindset, chasing the better version of you, builds internal pressure, the good kind. It's not anxiety or insecurity, it's drive, it's energy. It's the voice that says, we're not done yet. There's more in the tank. It separates you from the world that's obsessed with comparing lives, likes, and labels. Because while everyone else is trying to look like someone else, you're focused on becoming someone real, you refined. Not who you were 5 years ago, not who you were last month, who you are becoming right now. When you embrace this chase, setbacks don't feel like failures anymore. They feel like feedback. You start to look at challenges as training, not punishment. You welcome discomfort because you know it's not a sign of weakness. It's the evidence that you're stretching, reaching, becoming. There's a shift that happens when you stop comparing yourself to others and start measuring yourself against your own potential. Your focus sharpens. Your decisions become intentional. You stop being pulled by what's popular and start being led by what's personal. This isn't a race with a finish line. There's no point where you say, I've arrived. I'm done growing. There's always another level, a higher standard, a deeper version of purpose you haven't accessed yet. And the beautiful part is, you don't need to be the best, you just need to be better. That's it, 1% better. One decision more aligned, one habit more consistent. Over time, those daily improvements add up in ways that will shock you. It's not glamorous, it's not always exciting. Sometimes it feels boring, repetitive, even exhausting. But that's how greatness is built. Not through massive leaps, but through steady, committed steps forward. And the person you're chasing, the future you, they're not some far-off fantasy, they're real. They're waiting. They exist on the other side of your effort, your honesty and your refusal to settle. Keep chasing them. Because every time you do, you bring that version of you closer. And one day, you'll look back and realize the gap between who you were and who you are now wasn't closed by chance. It was closed by choice. Delaying gratification and embracing the process is one of the hardest, yet most important principles to live by if you want to achieve anything meaningful. We live in a world that praises speed, quick results, fast fame, instant success. But real growth, the kind that lasts, doesn't work like that. It doesn't come in a day, a week, or even a few months. It comes through deliberate, patient work. It comes through the grind you don't post about, the repetition no one claps for, and the discipline to keep showing up when the payoff feels far away. Because that's the thing, anything truly valuable takes time to build. When you delay gratification, you're not just putting off a reward. You're building resilience. You're training your mind and body to prioritize what you need over what you want in the moment. That's strength, that's maturity. It means choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term pleasure. Studying instead of scrolling, practicing instead of partying, saving instead of spending, saying not yet when everything around you is screaming right now. And that decision, made again and again, turns into character. The process is not always glamorous. In fact, it's often boring, repetitive. It lacks the drama of achievement and the spotlight of success. But it's where the real transformation happens. You become better not by skipping steps, but by honoring each one of them. The process humbles you. It exposes your weaknesses, tests your commitment, and reveals your true intentions. Are you doing this because you love the growth, or are you just chasing the outcome? That's a question only the process can answer. Because once the hype fades, only the discipline stays standing. There's something powerful that happens when you stop asking, how fast can I get there? And start asking, how far can I go if I stay consistent? That shift in mindset changes everything. You no longer obsess over results, you focus on progress. And progress is slow, but it's also steady, and it's real. Each day you show up, even when you don't feel like it, you're becoming someone stronger, sharper, more focused. You're becoming someone who can handle the weight of the success you're aiming for. When you embrace the process, setbacks don't destroy you. They refine you. You stop seeing failure as something to avoid and start seeing it as part of the path. Every mistake becomes a lesson. Every delay becomes a chance to get better. That's what embracing the process looks like. It's understanding that growth isn't linear. It's messy. It's full of detours, dead ends, and doubts. But if you stay in it, if you stay present and committed, the reward becomes more than just external success. It becomes internal strength. The greatest achievements are not given, they're earned. And the price is patience. Anyone can start something. Few can finish. Even fewer can endure the space in between, where the excitement fades and the results haven't shown up yet. But that space is where the difference is made. That's where people are separated. That's where the average quit and the committed continue. You don't need to have it all figured out today. You just need to stay in the process, trust the path, and know that the work you're doing in silence will echo in your future. Delay the gratification. Embrace the process. Because in the end, the process isn't just what gets you to the goal. It's what prepares you to keep it. Owning your failures and seeing them as teachers is one of the most powerful mindset shifts you can make on your journey to growth. Too many people are afraid of failure because they've been conditioned to believe it's something negative, something that defines them, embarrasses them, or disqualifies them. But the truth is, failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it. You cannot grow without it. You cannot build strength, skill, or wisdom unless you've stumbled, struggled, and learned what doesn't work. Every successful person has failed. The difference is they didn't run from it, they studied it. When you own your failure, you take back control. Blaming others, making excuses, or pretending it didn't happen only delays your growth. It might protect your ego in the short term, but it weakens your progress in the long run. Because the moment you blame, you give away your power. You're saying, I'm not responsible, so I can't change anything. But when you say, this was on me, that's when everything shifts. That's when you start learning. You see what you could have done better. You analyze your decisions, your mindset, your preparation, and that insight becomes the foundation for your next step. Failure teaches you things that success never will. It reveals your weak points. It exposes areas where you lack discipline, awareness, or clarity. That's not something to avoid. That's something to embrace. You can't correct a mistake you refuse to acknowledge. You can't build resilience if you never face resistance. And you can't sharpen your skills if you never challenge them. That's why the best learners, the best leaders, and the most successful people in the world are students of failure. They reflect, they recalibrate, and they move forward better equipped. One of the hardest parts of owning failure is silencing the voice in your head that says you're not enough. That voice will use failure as evidence that you're broken, incapable, or falling behind. But failure doesn't say you're not enough. It says you tried. It says you stepped out. It says you were brave enough to attempt something. That alone puts you ahead of those who stay stuck in comfort zones, never risking, never growing. So instead of punishing yourself, learn to congratulate yourself for having the courage to take the shot, even if it didn't land. When you start owning your failures, you also become more coachable. You're no longer defensive. You're open to feedback, hungry for improvement. You stop seeing correction as criticism and start seeing it as a gift. This kind of humility is rare, but it's what separates high performers from the rest. Because they're not worried about looking perfect. They're focused on becoming effective. And that can only happen when you're honest about what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how you can grow from it. Letting failure teach you doesn't mean you dwell on it. It means you study it, extract the lesson, and let it fuel your next move. Every setback becomes data. Every loss becomes direction. Instead of trying to erase your mistakes, you transform them into stepping stones. Over time, these failures become the most valuable chapters in your story. Not because they define you, but because you decided how to respond to them. That's real power. That's self-leadership. So when failure comes, and it will, don't run, don't hide, and don't deny it. Own it, learn from it, use it. Because the moment you stop fearing failure is the moment you start learning at full speed. And when you're learning, you're growing. And when you're growing, you're winning. Always, blocking out noise and distractions is not just about creating quiet around you. It's about creating focus within you. In a world that constantly demands your attention, the ability to block out the external and tune into the internal is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Every notification, every headline, every opinion thrown your way is trying to pull you away from yourself. But growth doesn't happen in noise. Clarity doesn't come from chaos. Mastery, discipline, peace, these live in silence. And silence only comes when you intentionally create space for it. Most people never reach their potential not because they lack talent, but because they lack focus. They allow distractions to scatter their energy, dilute their effort, and weaken their consistency. You can't build something strong if your attention is constantly shifting. You can't go deep if you're always jumping from one thing to the next. And you certainly can't become the best version of yourself if you're too busy watching everyone else. Social media, endless opinions, comparison, it's mental clutter. And clutter is the enemy of progress. Blocking out the noise means learning how to say no. No to distractions, no to unnecessary drama, no to things that don't align with your purpose. It means recognizing that not everything deserves your attention, your reaction, or your energy. Attention is currency. You're either investing it wisely or wasting it carelessly. Every time you choose to focus on something irrelevant, you're paying the price with your progress. That's why boundaries matter. Time blocking matters. Disconnecting matters. These are not just productivity hacks, they're survival strategies in a noisy world. One of the greatest things you can do for your growth is to cultivate stillness. Not just physical stillness, but mental stillness. The kind of stillness where you can think clearly, reflect deeply, and listen to what your own inner voice is saying, not the voices of critics, doubters, or distractions. This kind of inner focus sharpens your decision-making, strengthens your self-awareness, and amplifies your results. You stop reacting to the world and start creating your own path. To block out distractions, you also need to know what you're locked into. Purpose gives you a filter. When you know what matters most, it becomes easier to let go of what doesn't. You stop chasing everything, and you start protecting your focus like it's sacred, because it is. The more focused you become, the more dangerous you are. You're no longer swayed by trends or peer pressure. You're driven by clarity, and clarity is rare. It's what separates those who drift from those who dominate. Sometimes distraction comes disguised as opportunity. That's why you have to be vigilant. Not every good thing is the right thing. Not every open door leads where you want to go. You need the discipline to ignore the noise that flatters your ego but doesn't feed your soul. That's why solitude is powerful. When you spend time alone with your thoughts without input, you start to hear what actually matters to you. That voice becomes louder, stronger, more certain, and that certainty becomes your compass. In the end, blocking out distractions is really about choosing yourself, choosing your goals, choosing your future, choosing to create a life that reflects your vision, not someone else's opinion. It's about being intentional in a world that celebrates impulse, focused in a culture that glorifies business, and grounded in a mindset that says, I don't need to do everything. I just need to do the right things and do them well. When you learn how to block out the noise, you give yourself the space to hear your own greatness calling. And more importantly, you give yourself the chance to answer it. Your habits shape your identity more than your words ever will. Who you are becoming is being formed day by day, not by grand declarations or big plans, but by the small decisions you make repeatedly. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe you are or want to be. If you want to change your life, you don't need to wait for a new year, a new week, or some big moment of inspiration. You need to change your habits. That's where real transformation begins. Habits are not just what you do, they're what you become. A lot of people chase motivation, but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Habits, on the other hand, stay. They don't ask you how you feel, they just execute. That's the power of routine. It frees you from the burden of daily decision making. When your life is driven by positive habits, you don't have to constantly negotiate with yourself. You don't wake up and ask, should I study today? Should I train? Should I focus? You already decided. You already built the system. The habits do the heavy lifting. What most people overlook is that habits are neutral at first. They don't care whether they're serving your growth or sabotaging it. That's why awareness is key. You have to examine your patterns. Ask yourself, what do my habits say about my priorities? Are they aligned with the future I want to create? You might say you want success, but if your habits are rooted in procrastination, distraction, or avoidance, your actions are contradicting your ambitions. And that disconnect will keep you stuck, frustrated, and confused about why change feels so hard. But here's the encouraging part: change doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. You don't have to make a massive shift overnight. You just have to start small and stay committed. Wake up 30 minutes earlier, read a few pages each day, practice discipline in one area of your life, and let that momentum carry into others. Over time, those small shifts compound. They become part of your identity. And that identity is what begins to rewrite your future. It's also important to understand that breaking bad habits takes just as much intention as building good ones. You have to interrupt the pattern. You have to create friction around the things that waste your time or drain your energy. Delete the app, set a boundary, change your environment. Make the wrong thing harder to do and the right thing easier. Willpower isn't enough. Your system matters. You can't out-discipline a destructive environment, and you can't rely on memory to build a life of focus. That's why your systems, your routines, your space, your circle, must reflect the life you want to live. The most successful people you admire don't rely on bursts of energy or rare moments of inspiration. They rely on structure. They don't have to feel motivated every day. They've made progress automatic. Their habits have become their identity. And once something becomes who you are, it becomes effortless. You don't try to be consistent. You just are. That's what mastery looks like. And that's available to anyone willing to make the small daily choices that align with a big vision. So if you want to change your life, don't start with motivation. Start with your habits. Build them intentionally. Repeat them daily. Let them become the quiet force that transforms who you are, what you believe, and what you achieve. Because at the end of the day, your future isn't decided by what you hope for or wish for. It's decided by what you do over and over again. And that's the real power of habit.